Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the late night. We're just focusing in on the vibes, so no thanks. Also, I'm trying something new. I'm not streaming on Twitch because I am using the AV1 encoder settings. Blah 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 techno bullshit. We could talk about it because there's no other thing that we're talking about tonight. And I wanted to see how well it looks. So I really upped my bit rate, and I just want to see if YouTube encodes it differently. And but unfortunately, Twitch does not support the AV1 codec. YouTube does, and the AV1 codec is a better codec for doing your coding and encoding, I should say, of your streams. So I wanted to test it, but unfortunately, Twitch does not support AV1. Boo, Twitch. So, anyways, we'll see. Also, eventually, I may start streaming. I could stream in 4K, but I might start streaming in 1440 as well instead of 1080. Yeah, but codec education stream. Yeah. I'm lagging? No, I'm not lagging. I shouldn't be lagging. I'm not dropping any frames on my. Oh no, I am lagging. Okay, so all right. Let me see. Okay, it's actually saying I'm giving them too much data. Let me tune down my bit rate a little bit. All right, I'll give them 10K. There we go. Anyways, we'll see. But we'll see. We'll see. It was too much Derek. It was too much Derek. We'll see. Maybe I have to stream at 4K in order to get it to accept me to be streaming with that much. Basically, now that I have this, whatchamacallit, now that I have this fiber optic internet, I have basically unlimited headroom to be able to stream at a much higher bit rate. And so even if people do watch it in 1080, it kind of makes sense for me to be able to stream at 1440 or 4K. And the reason is because YouTube will give you a better codec. No, I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about YouTube accepting my bit rate. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So if it's lagging for you, it could just be that there's more. It could just be more internet than we're used to. But I don't know. We'll see. Again, it's just an experiment. It's just a test, and we'll see what happens. Basically, and I want to see if it's actually worth the improvement in quality. Anyways, you like the minimalist stream? Yeah, this is my green screen stream, but yeah. Let's see here. Well, basically, you see what a codec is it's a way of, it's like a zip file. It's like a zip file for your video files, basically. That's all it is. And your computer is doing that every frame. It's zipping it and sending it and then reassembling it. There you go. I did do some tech rants earlier, although most of my rants were really just more about horrible streamers in basically the YouTube universe, but especially the D&D universe as well, which is always cool. What is the OSQ rant? I don't know what an OSQ rant is. Oh, one-shot quest. That's what OSQ is. Thank you. FL4. I don't even, literally didn't hear about him or know who he was until today when Roll for Combat sent me the video of them talking about this. I mean, TLDR, an idiot who doesn't know anything about anything, was like shitting on this small group of content creators for spending too much money on their video on their streaming setup, when I in fact thought they actually made a pretty dang budget build. I was actually, if anything, I was disappointed that they didn't spend enough money. I understand, Casey. I understand. I appreciate it. I really overdid it today. I thought I was dying earlier. I was like, oh no, I don't know if I'm having a panic attack or if I'm having a heart attack or if I just have heartburn or if I'm just overexhausted. But between racquetball and walking and all this other stuff, I was pretty burned out today. So I just have to try to go easier in the future. So of course, naturally, I'm here streaming, but that's because this is my happy place. It's my comfort place. Nice. That's pretty slick. Enjoy. Always good to see a repost. I saw Tunnels and Trolls did 124,000 Great British pounds. What do you think about that? That's not a lot for the development team. FL4G, I mean, I think maybe we're used to, you know, these darling Moonlight Kickstarters that do $1.8 million. The fact of the matter is, you know, there's a lot of Kickstarters out there that only do, you know, what's 124K Great British? Like, is that like 150K or something? 175K USD? I mean, yeah, like, you know, you're not going to be able to run a development studio on just doing one of those every year or two, like some of these, you know, small press publishers do. But, you know, they're a studio, so presumably their developers are working on multiple things, and they're going to have multiple things coming out. And it's my understanding that Rebellion owns a variety of properties and licenses, so I imagine they're going to be doing several of those. So yeah, you're going to have to. You can't just, you know, strike it rich, strike it oil, you know, on one Kickstarter and then just ride that for the rest of your life, which is apparently, you know, the goal. I mean, listen, I would love to do that. I mean, I'd love to. Here's the real goal: make a lot of money on a Kickstarter, hire my friends, and we just play games all day. And I don't know, stream them and hang out with you guys and figure out ways to throw all that money away through prizes and giveaways and make the most best awesome game community in the entire world. That's my plan. I don't know about you guys. That's my plan. I basically want to become Quinn. That's my goal. I want to grow up and become Quinn. No, fuck that, Lollipop. I don't want to make RPGs. I want to play them. I want to play RPGs. You know, making them is all right, I guess. I'd rather play them. Yeah, play all them is more correct where I'm at. Anyways, so yeah, no agenda tonight. So if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, you know, feel free to throw them in chat. Just hanging out. I don't think there's only going to be like 20, 30 of us, plus of course the bots. So yeah, we can shoot the shit and hang out a little bit. Lance Quagmire, definitely a bot. Need to ban that. Exactly. Spill the beans on how cool they are to us. Well, not just that for me. I mean, it'd be cool to, I don't know, figure out ways to play more of them with everybody and stream them and get them all that other stuff, you know? It'd be cool. Out of the last couple of first looks, which game would you like, I assume you're saying, to play in, not GM? It's very rare that I ever want to play in a game and not to GM a game. I do enjoy GMing. I would say of the first looks that we've looked at, the game that I'm probably most likely. I mean, what's your time horizon? What are we talking about here? What are we even talking about? What are we even doing here? Let's take a look here. I'll just. So the last couple of first looks. Excuse me. Playlists. First look. All right, we have Temeraire, Tunnels and Trolls, Vagabond, Oathhammer, Pumpkin Spice, Dungeon World 2, Beyond the Walls, Land of Eam, Dolmen Wood, Heroic Deeds, Coriolis, Wilder Feast, all the mech games. I don't know. Temeraire seems pretty cool. It's got a lot of neat elements that I enjoy playing as a player. I like that kind of mechanical elements to my role-playing game. I don't know about the setting, so that makes me a little bit hesitant to engage. But the sort of the Adena or the Adena system seems pretty cool. Oathhammer looked interesting. I certainly like some of the elements there. Pumpkin Spice, probably not good for a long time, but maybe a good time. And honestly, playing Pumpkin Spice is kind of the same thing as jamming it. So yeah, we'll say that. I don't know. We'll say Temeraire. Believe it or not. But even, well, I don't know. The setting was kind of meh. I don't know. Tunnels and Trolls looks fun to run. That'd be a fun game to run. I would love to see, obviously it's just a quick start. Both Temeraire and Tunnels and Trolls are a quick start, so it's kind of hard to fully judge. Has Codex, well, I haven't actually played Codex Black Retro, so has it changed the view of VTTs at all? It seems like MCDM is really pushing for Codex as the premier way of playing Draw Steel. I still don't love it. It's still not my favorite thing in the world. I still prefer to sit around a table and, fiddle with bits. But I mean, it's cool. I certainly appreciate and applaud what they're doing. I mean, I guess it's just this, we're reaching this point where RPGs are becoming more a VTT RPG rather than a TTRPG, and Draw Steel is definitely kind of going down that line. It certainly seems like they're not saying it out loud, but I think Matt Colville and his crew are kind of saying some of those elements for sure. But there's also things that are being developed, right? There's like Emberwind and Crucible, right, for Foundry and stuff. So Pico just got added to our first look queue today, so we're gonna be taking a look at that hopefully soon. My problem with the custom VTT thing is I worry that we're gonna get into like a world where it's like, hey, everybody, we get to cancel cable and we have our Netflix streaming service. I mean, now we have our Disney and Netflix. I mean, we have our Disney, Netflix, Hulu, Paramount, right? Like, and then before you know it, you need 18 different VTTs. And I hate the, like Matt was talking about, he's like, it's so great because you don't have to do anything. And then he gets to like the one part in his one video and he goes, okay, well, that part you would have to like write scripting languages and coding for. And if you want to learn scripting languages, now's the time. And I'm like, I don't want to write scripting languages just so my RPG works, And it's, a lot of people say you don't need that. You can just whatever. But I think being on a VTT raises people's sort of expectations, and their interface with the game changes because they're playing on a VTT. Again, that's not really the VTT's fault, but it is something that I think people do. I think they change how they approach games because of that. Correct. Legend of the Five Burning Wheel Dragon Avatar. Pendragon, just both because of the sort of duties and desires and also because of the dragons. But I also appreciate the fact that analog at the table is just not... Here's what it comes down to. I have yet to experience a VTT that has actually made my gaming simpler. Or I felt like I was advantaged, right? As opposed to playing at a table. There's like, and like some of the stuff that people might think some of the things that people say they like about VTTs, I actually find annoying. Like, oh, it's great. And, Pathfinder 2, it rolls, when I attack with a weapon that has 18 different damage dice, and does 5 different elemental damage types, it calculates the resistances and the vulnerabilities, or the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities to each of the things independently and applies it all automatically. Believe it or not, I don't like that. Now, I don't like that the rules are that complex. I would rather they didn't be that complex. But like making it happen automatically is for me not an ideal solution. What I really want is theoretically what I really want Tabletop Simulator. I really want what Project Sigil sort of was going to be. But I really want is Tabletop Simulator. I want a virtual tabletop, I don't want whatever a VTT is. I don't, VTTs are this. They're just too video gamey to me, and I don't like that part of it. Hey, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. If I can't play in person with my friends, having beers and snacks, I'd rather not play at all. I care more about the social part of me being with friends than the game. I have video games for that. That's a reasonable take. I mean, obviously, I really love having the ability to play with people from all over the world, and even my own group. We play online because one of our members is on the west coast of the U.S. But yeah, nothing beats, I think, sitting around in person. I think that's the best. Main thing of VTT is for me is for the grids and minis. I've had enough bullshit auras happening in my crunchier games at points that they'd be held to run at the table. Right. And so I guess for me, it's more of like, I think I'd rather at that point I would rather not have all the bullshit auras. Right. That's where I'm getting to. Like, I feel like the technology is allowing people to make games that are perhaps too complicated to run. That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily like true, actual, pure virtual reality, but yeah, for sure. And my ninja crashed again. Why is this thing crashing all the time? I think it needs to be updated. Something happened to this thing. All right. We seem to be activated. Test, test, test. This has been happening lately. Lately, my ninja thing has been crashing out on me. Okay. I can see all this chat. Okay. All right. All right, Doc. Come on. Do your thing. Ignore my test. All right. There we go. Okay. Perfect. Just it died on me. DM'd a video game is basically what the online, what the Neverwinter Nights servers were. 100%. And again, like, I don't know exactly what you did, and knowing you, Jess, you probably did way too much. But like, I remember like Smith writing all these complicated scripts and writing like, procedural generating tables. And I think it was all in Lua or something. But I mean, he was just writing all these like crazy like things. And I was like, so that he could run a game online. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like we're in this weird twilight zone, right, between a video game and a tabletop role-playing game, and I don't like that. I think that's where I come down to is I don't like video games, but if I did like video games, I like video games, and I like role-playing games, but I don't necessarily like this weird, like, we're like in an uncanny valley, I would suppose is what I was going to say here. So Casey Roberts says, I missed it because, the chat died, but it said, he said, Matt Colville, describing how a person with a torch walking out of the room and the other person's model or mini was surrounded in darkness did nothing for me. So I remember when I first started using Roll20, and I remember, using the dynamic lighting and being like, oh, this is so cool. Look at this shirted dish. Like the dark vision characters can only see 60 feet, and the characters with normal vision can only see 20 feet, but then it's dim illumination for 20 feet, and the elf could see double this. And then that like, oh, it's so cool, lasted for about, I don't know, a few months. And now I think for the last umpteen years, I just turn on vision all, like I don't like I don't do the the dynamic lighting effects. I don't do any of that. Like, I'm just like, nope, I we're playing a game, if we were sitting around a table, it's not like you wouldn't be able to see what you see. That, to me, that seems more like a video game. But I also think that, like, people like Matt Colville, I think he actually does like. I think Matt Colville actually likes video games more than he likes role-playing games. So, which is fine, but I think Matt Colville is trying to bring role-playing games closer to video games, because I think he thinks that I think he likes them better, I mean, if a top-down token view of your character or your mini is immersion, I don't even know what we're doing anymore, I mean, see, I think the better solution is just to avoid having that argument in the first place. But also, too, Alan, I grew up playing, and I still play to this day in a lot of RPGs I play. I play I play a lot of Theater of the Mind game, even when I'm playing D&D. So for me, like this idea of the grid and the tactical minis and all that other stuff, like I don't really actually still really fully associate that with D&D. Actually, what I mostly associate grid and 5-foot squares and checking line of sight, I really associate that is with the D&D miniatures game, which was a specific tactical miniatures. It was a competitive game where your opponent, there were tournaments and stuff like that. You made a war band, you brought your war band to a tournament, you played your war band, you tried to score victory points. It used the 3rd edition rules, kind of a stripped down version of the 3rd edition rules to play it, but I associate it with that, Right. So I mean, I'm not poo-poo. I mean, if people like it, I think that's great. People love video games. People love Baldur's Gate 3. I don't love Baldur's Gate 3. So, I mean, yeah, why? If I don't love Baldur's Gate 3, why would you expect that I would like for my D&D to be more like a video game? I don't. I mean, that's... Right. So, yeah, I have no interest in that, right? I need an adult beverage. The best I've got is a Diet Mountain Dew. Besides, like I said, I've been having some nasty. Well, I'm either having nasty heartburn, or I'm having, I don't know, some sort of low-grade heart attack for the last 5 hours. Actually, I ran out of Tums, so I just shotgunned like a 8-ball of baking soda, which is totally safe, by the way, obviously, and it works like a charm. It just tastes absolutely terrible. Good old sodium bicarbonate. Correct, Jess. If you don't have the dynamic lighting and you can't see what your character is, how can you actually get into the character? Absolutely correctly. I think if you call VTTs too video gamey, you can't get mad at people who call really gamist RPGs video gamey. Well, okay, except that like a VTT is on a computer and it is a video game, right? I mean, right? Like that's like calling a board game video gamey. No. Like it's just a board game. No, of course, yeah. People like very much different things about that. Good night, Kojo. Good to see you, man. Not me. My TI days are over, which is to say that I think I've only played in like 3 games that ever finished, and that was even before I think TI4. That might have been TI2 or TI3. I've never played TI4. Yeah, Twilight Imperium. I mean, I like board games, but Twilight Imperium does nothing for me. I would rather play, an entire campaign of Blighted Reach for Arcs than play Twilight Imperium. Oh goodness, no. No. I mean, I don't want to start like it's cool that you enjoy it. I don't think it's particularly. I mean, again, I haven't played TI4, but I don't think it's a particularly good game. So, but now Twilight Struggle. Now Twilight Struggle is a great game. Twilight Struggle is great. My problem with Twilight Struggle is I feel like the replayability. I know people say it's high, but it does feel very samey because you're playing the same cards all the time, and this, the same scoring regions, in each of the different phases of the game or whatever they're called, acts. I don't remember what they're called, but so it's been a long time since I played TI, but that does sound like that's ringing some bells that might make it seem like it sounds better because, yeah, I do remember what you were referring there with the clock and all that other stuff. Yeah, a lot of people said Eclipse was the better version of TI, mostly because it's faster. But again, I would rather play Arcs at this point. Arcs, Cole Worley created a game. What do I need to play other games for? Just looking at my dog. Yeah, I do. I mean, I still admit. I mean, again, I love all games. I mean, I miss playing I miss playing board games. I definitely miss playing board games. I used to play a lot of board games, and now I don't play as many. Mostly probably because of this channel, but it does happen. Excuse me. I mean, Samurai Swords is a classic. It's not a particularly good game. I own it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I don't remember if I backed that new premium, ultra premium edition that they just released of it. I mean, it was Akusa or whatever, but the problem with Samurai Swords is it's very easy. I will say this: Samurai Swords at Origins is better because if you get wiped out or your starting position sucks and you basically suck, it's better because you can just, if you lose, you can just get up and go do something else. I enjoy diplomacy. I know a lot of people say, oh, it ends friendships and stuff like that. I mean, maybe if you're playing with children, but there's a new version of diplomacy which I saw getting played at Origins last year. They have a new map. Let me see if I can see this here. Let's see. The new diplomacy board game. There's a new diplomacy. Yeah, it's called it's from Renegade. It's called the Era of Empire. And while fundamentally it is it's based around India, it is a different, they basically took the opportunity to fix some of the core problems that existed in the original diplomacy. And I've heard from people that it's a much better game in terms of just a balance and not feeling so, priced into certain moves. And it's just a much more dynamic game. But I will freely admit that my favorite games of diplomacy was playing online through Play Diplomacy, or Web Diplomacy, I should say, and playing the Westeros variants, playing the Middle Earth variants. I really liked playing those because that just made it more fun for me, right? So instead of being Turkey or England or Russia, it was you were the Starks, you were the Lannisters, and that was fun, So, and it was played by post, right? Each game had its own order deadline. I used to play in games that had 48-hour order deadlines or whatever, which was a good enough pace for me. And you could send, private messages to individuals. You could send them to entire groups and broadcasts. And that was cool because it made it a lot easier to scheme and stuff, but you could do it at work, right? Which is where I did it mostly. Fun game. Starfarers of Catan was just, it was too complicated for a Catan game, and I never felt like it was worth it. Plus, we were like, you know, young guys, so it inevitably got called Starcock of Catan because the spaceship kind of looked like a space dildo. So there was that. What can I say? I don't know. Does it still come with the gigantic spaceship? It used to. All right. Looks like it still does. You like shake it up in order to get like the beads at the bottom to see what player order you go in. So, you know, you'd pick up the giant space dildo and shake it. I mean, it was toilet humor. It was college humor, but I was literally in college. So, you know, call it what it is. I mean, Catan isn't exactly the best board game of all time. I mean, when it came out, it was revolutionary, and it was, you know, again, one of the reasons I appreciate board games so much is because they are not afraid to innovate and, you know, keep going on. When Catan came out, when the designer Euros came out, you know, like Carcassonne and Catan and all that stuff in the you know, the designer games of the 90s, they were revolutionary. They were huge. I mean, they were so much better than the Monopolies and Game of Life and all those other crap games. And I love Axis and Allies still, but I mean, you'll probably never catch me playing it again. I mean, unless it's like strictly for nostalgia reasons, because, you know, it's very zero sum, winner take all. It's, you know, it's kind of cutthroat. It's, the mechanics are, there's no catching up, but, you know, I mean, it's just not a particularly nice, you know, game in that respect. So, you know, we all grew up playing Ameritrash, and then these Euro games came out and they were amazing. Well, now if you look at the board games that have been coming out in the last 5 to 10 years, I think it looks like, I think they make Catan look like, you know, Axis and Allies or Monopoly, I think, in some ways. And it's because board games don't feel this need to, like, you worship sacred cows, you know, the golden calf, the hair, you know, it's just, it's such a strange, the dogma, the zealotry of RPGs is crazy. It's off the charts. And I'm not really quite sure why, but I mean, board games, there are board game fanatics, but I mean, not like the way that RPGs are. It's very strange. It's a very toxic community. I've been a part of it my whole life. I've been going to, you know, gaming conventions and local gaming meetups since, you know, I was 15 or whatever, but so 30 years, but almost 30 years. But it's not a great group, which is why the Knights of Last Call as a community is so strange to me, honestly. It's because it's everyone's, you know, for the most part, incredibly so nice. Yes, Euro games, or some people call them Euro trash, and as opposed to Ameritrash, correct. You know, I hear people say that, and I guess that's probably true. I don't know. I guess it depends on the board game. I guess it depends on the RPG. Because even with an RPG, I mean, how many elements in an RPG are completely meaningless to you? Like, for example, when you're, let's say, a fighter in D&D or Pathfinder 2, all the spells, none of them matter. You don't need to know what any of them do. All your feats, you don't need to know what any of them do. You need to know what your one feat does, right? Your 2 feats. You need to know the core mechanic, which is not that different than, you know, a board game. And yeah, I mean, if your board game is, I don't know, Go Fish, yes, the RPG is going to be more complicated. But there are plenty of board games that have lengthy manuals. Not to mention, so I used to date a girl for many years, and she was an avid board game enthusiast, and she had a rule. And her rule was the board game, she hated any board game where the rules for the board game weren't in the book. And what does that mean? Okay, well, there's a lot of board games, some of my favorite, where the rules are like, maybe it's like a 15-page rule book. But then every card in the game is unique, right? Basically Magic the Gathering, right? Every card has its own unique rules text. Now, I'm not just necessarily saying like, oh, I have a card, it's a generic wheat card. Like, that's fine, because that's something in the rules. But if like you think about a game where it's like, draw the card for the turn, it has a bunch of rules and effects, and you have to bid for it, or whatever the case of the game may be. And she was like, no, this game is lying to me, because the game says it's a 15-page, rules, or 20-page rules. But then every time I get a new card in my hand, or every time a new tile gets revealed, I have to learn more rules. It's tricking me into learning a bunch of rules, and I don't know all of these rules, so I'm playing the game blind. I don't know at the beginning of the game what every single card does, nor would I ever expect that I would. So I'm playing the game la-di-da-di-da, and suddenly a card gets revealed that you can bid for, and it says you get 1 victory point for every space card that you have. And she's like, well, I didn't know that card even existed in the game. So I ignored the space cards. I thought, oh, these are kind of overpriced. Why would anyone buy them? Well, it turns out there's a card that becomes available some point in the game, maybe randomly, who knows, that gives you bonus victory points for space cards. Well, I didn't know that card existed until it came out. So they didn't put that in the rules. So anyways, so she had this, like, she was very, she didn't like that kind of stuff. Anyways, my point is, RPGs really aren't like that. Like, you don't need to know every single spell to play the game. You don't need to know. You're not going to be like randomly playing your fighter in PF2 and you have sudden charge, and suddenly you're going to need to know the rules for, whatever it's called, insightful strike, or whatever it's called. And taken to another extreme, right? This is where we get to the games that have a very basic framework type system, where there aren't really a lot of specific rules. It's just general principles and heuristics. And then you use those principles to try to fit everything into that framework, which is kind of my favorite way to do RPGs, actually. There you go. Jess's boyfriend says the same thing about Wingspan, right? Every bird is its like own new set of rules, right? Yeah, I mean, in general, like Magic the Gathering was like her worst nightmare. But I mean, there's so many games that kind of that do that. Like, I mean, I'm getting very board game here specific, but like she could barely accept Dominion, because in Dominion, the 10 cards that you were playing with for that game, right? If you had all the expansions, you had like 50 to choose from, but you're only picking 10. They get put into piles on the middle of the board. You can read them before the game starts. It's 10 cards, not that bad. And they all do the same things, and they're all available, and what's in the game at the beginning of the instance, And so she could accept that, right? But if you're playing a game where, like, someone mentioned, maybe they didn't mention, but like Legendary, which is a card drafting game similar to Dominion, but what happens is each round new cards come out of the deck, and you have to bid for them, and you're like, I didn't know that these cards were even in the game. Correct, Lollipop. Yes. Some people see games with lots of principles and not many rules as akin to flying by. Right. And different strokes, right, for different folks. What I don't like is where people are like, I like that, like Blades in the Dark is a great example of this, where at the end of the day, regardless of what we're saying and regardless of what we're doing, we are going to map whatever you're doing to either controlled, risky, or desperate. And we're going to map your effect to none, limited, standard, great, or extreme. And so, we can argue, or we can debate, or we can discuss whether your particular line of action, it constitutes limited effect or standard effects, or if it's a risky maneuver, or if it's more of a desperate maneuver. We can debate that. But what I like is that there is no place in the game where like that framework doesn't cover it. My problem with certain instances and certain elements of certain games is like people are playing this game and they come up with some sort of new rule or new house rule, and I'm like, that literally doesn't have anything to do with anything else in the rest of the game. So it's kind of like it feels out of it that feels like truly just making shit up, and that I think is a little less appealing to me than, say, being like, hey, we all agreed that this is the framework, and while we may have to have debates about whether, you know, you jumping off of the roof and landing onto the moving stagecoach constitutes a desperate or a risky maneuver, and we can have that discussion, and I'm happy to have it. But we all agree that at the end of the day, it's going to fall into that framework, and I really appreciate that. You know, in some ways, that is the theory behind D&D D20, where you are supposed to basically say everything gets assigned a DC, and then you roll a D20, and you add bonuses that reflect how good you are or what your chance is at accomplishing that goal. And if you beat the DC, you did it, and if you didn't, you didn't. So now, where D&D got into trouble is that, you know, it tried to create rules rather than guidelines for, well, what do you get? What do I get if I'm? What if I get? What do I get if I'm standing on higher ground than my opponent? What do I get if my opponent's prone? What if I'm prone? What if I'm prone and I'm attacking with a ranged weapon? What if I'm prone and I'm attacking with a ranged weapon, but that ranged weapon is a crossbow? What if I'm prone and I'm attacking with a ranged weapon, but it's a throwing weapon? You know, and we start getting into this line of reasoning. So instead of the GM just going, you know, as I've said before, if we were playing, you know, Blades in the Dungeon, right? If we were playing Blades in the Dark, but with Dungeons and Dragons, when you go to fight a skeleton and you attack it with your sword, right? I might say, well, you know, look, this skeleton is a risky combatant. You know, you're not desperate. It's your level, you know, but you're not higher level than the skeleton. You're not lower level than the skeleton, so it's risky. And then I would say you're using a slashing weapon. You are going to have limited effect because slashing weapons aren't very potent against, you know, a skeletal creature. Whereas the cleric who is attacking the skeleton is also risky because it's the same situation, but they're using a mace. And so their effect is standard. Oh, it's a holy mace? Well, these are undead skeletons. I'm going to say you have great effect, right? So that's just a way of us generalizing it. But that heuristic applies to anything and everything. We don't have to have bespoke rules for literally every single situation that happens in the game. I'm pretty good, Edward. Like I said, I was very physically active today after racquetball, and I kind of maybe overdid it. But it's raining. It's lovely. There was a horrible hailstorm in my area today. Not my area, south of where I am. My buddy's car got kind of totaled, destroyed. But other than that, it's really good. I love the rain. It's one of my favorite. I love the rain and the snow. I love precipitation. Yeah, exactly. Single flexible core mechanic, some guidelines, not a huge list of situations, right? Blades in the Dark is fantastic. Now, Blades in the Dark is a hard game to win. I will admit that, right? Blades in the Dark is not a game that you can play very easily as a competitive type game. And a lot of people who play role-playing games, even people who play very like character-focused and whatever, are actually playing them in a very competitive mindset. I'm here to beat the game. I'm here to beat the challenges of the GM. I'm here to overcome the challenges of the world. In fact, I would argue, in some ways, the more immersionist you are, the more in character you are, the more you are likely to view the game, actually, through a competitive lens. Because realistically, you are viewing it as your character would. And so you're like, I mean, like, think about it this way. As a movie watcher, or me playing an RPG character. Like, I don't care if my character gets completely screwed over and betrayed, and because I think it'll make for a really great story, and I think it'll be really interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens when my character fails and is captured, and they begin turning him into an undead slave or whatever. I think that's really awesome. I can't wait to find out. That sounds like it's going to be really cool and interesting, and create a really cool, unique, interesting experience and story. But if you're really in character, you would never want that to happen, right? You want to beat the bad guy as easily and quickly as possible, with ideally with no muss, no fuss, right? Like, I don't want drama in my real everyday life. I don't want to be like, okay, I can't wait for this to throw me a bunch of curveballs, and I'm going to have to really, really pull all the stops out, and it's going to be this really, really tense, dramatic affair. Like, no, I want it to be as easy as it possibly can go. I want to have everything go correctly. I want to have it be served up to me on a platter. If I can win easily, I want to win easily, right? So in some ways, I think that the more in character you are, the more you tend to view D&D or RPGs as a sort of a you know, an experience to be won, right? A set of challenges to be beaten. And it's possible that those type of people might find themselves drawn to games where, you know, you have this very discrete set of this is what bonus you get, or this is what penalty you apply, because it allows you to be more, you know, efficient or more effective at trying to beat, quote unquote, the game, right? Yeah, right, exactly. And I try very much to avoid doing that, right? I don't. Now, it depends on the type and the nature of the game. As I said, like when I play a dungeon-based game, I'm there to win. But I should point out that when I play a dungeon-based game, I'm there to, like, beat the dungeon master, right? Like, I'm not there to, like, beat the NPC. No, I want to beat the DM. I want to beat his challenges, right? I want to throw down. So, well, what I just mean is that I think if you're very, you know, immersed in the game and you want to overcome your challenges, you know, I think that when, like, you know, the GM says, you know, oh, this situation is going to be really desperate, you're likely to suffer a lot of problems from this reaction. You know, I think it makes it harder for you to be like, that's cool, I can't wait to go with that. I think it, you know, maybe if you're very mature, you can be like, oh, I understand that. But, you know, and the GM might be thinking, this is going to make for a really great experience and a really great story. Whereas, you know, you're like, I'm not necessarily looking for a really great experience and a really great story. I'm looking for a very accurate portrayal. Now, see, that's interesting, because I think that I think that a lot of diehard people would say that, you know, that kind of agenda might not necessarily feel appropriate. They would say, unless my character, right, was a roguish, you know, ne'er-do-well scoundrel who very much thought of themselves as always getting into trouble. But I would never, like, have this sort of secondary agenda. Okay, can you be engaged with your character and keep the story feral? Yes. Could you be immersed with your character? I don't know. This is like Emmanuel Galetto of Fabula Ultima talks about the difference between immersion and engagement, and it kind of talks about it specifically in that context. So I think being engaged is fine. I think some of the he's much more anti-immersion than I am. So, well, you are a goddess, so you get a free pass, I guess. It's awesome, Jams. I respect the hell out of that as well. I also wonder if a LARP makes it a little bit different than a TTRPG. I haven't LARPed, so I can't really speak from experience there. But I wonder if, like, the nature of a LARP is inherently more like, no matter how you play it, you're going to be more, you know, immersed, and yet you are in the back of your mind, you know, trying to play towards a certain type of story arc, you know. All right, fair enough. Okay. Again, I mean, I like to do that, but you know, I don't possess this power, you know, Jams. I mean, this is coming from a place of weakness. I don't possess that power that other people apparently have, where they are able to, without any bias, without any cognitive bias, they are able to make what they describe as random outcome decisions for their character. The term that they use is, I was so surprised by my character's actions tonight at the session. And then I go, did you roll for them? And they say, no, I made all of my character's decisions. And I personally, I don't have that capability. I don't understand it. I don't pretend to understand it. I, quite frankly, a little skeptical that they're telling the truth, but I don't know that they understand whether they're telling the truth or not. But again, I'm not going to tell somebody how they're thinking or feeling. But I certainly can tell you this. I don't have that capability. For sure. Not everyone is trying to play towards the start of the arc, and many other players found my dedication to playing garbage people deeply frustrating. That's awesome. Yes, I would say that. Yeah, playing at a LARP will make you feel more immersed just because you're right there in the spot. So again, that's not what I'm in here for. It's not what I'm in for. And I also, again, I don't possess that ability. I don't have that ability to sort of, be surprised by my character's actions. I don't really know that I have the ability to be surprised by my actions. I guess I'm like really, really, really like what is it? Is it CBT? DBT or whatever. I'm like really DBT coded or something like that, right? Like dialectic behavioral therapy or whatever. Like I'm very just like, I'm always evaluating, like, why do I feel this way? Like what is causing my emotional reaction? What is causing my response? I kind of just do it automatically, right? Do you agree that if you were to read a novel before coming to the game, you would be primed towards coming up with character beats that are in line with the novel you'd just read immediately beforehand? I don't know. No. I would say I'm always primed towards doing very tropey things. I don't necessarily know about, like, specifically, I just read a novel and now, if the novel were top of mind. No, I don't think so. But also, this is why I like dice, because then I don't have to make that decision. I just let the dice decide, right? I'm a big fan of disclaiming decision-making, right? John Harper calls it disclaiming decision-making. And he's talking about it from as a GM. I like talking about it as a player, I mean, again, I've used this description before, but one of my favorite things that ever occurred in a role-playing game was when we were playing Legend of the Five Rings, and my good friend Smith was playing a Phoenix Samurai, and his character, his background / his actions had basically led him to be unable to defeat an evil. And his character's like, and I'm like, well, what do you think your character thinks about that? He goes, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty big blow to his personal honor. I'm like, oh, are you thinking about seppuku? He goes, well, I don't know. So I'm going to make, my character has meditation. I'm going to make a meditation check against myself. If I pass my own DC, then I was able to, sort of find a philosophical way to be okay with it. And if I can't, if I don't pass the check, then I didn't. And I probably do kill myself. And I said, all right, bet. That's cool. Let's do it. And I thought that was a great, that to me was surprising. And that to me was like truly emergent, right? Because the dice decided, you know, if anything, the dice decided predicated by how well his character has, you know, ranks in meditation, you know? So I thought that was pretty, you know, that was pretty cool. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know that I feel the same way, High Society. I mean, if anything, I'm a little jealous of that kind of I don't know. I feel like I would need to like two minds to be of two minds to be able to do that. I don't know. Yeah, what would Aragorn do? The last book I read is always a Tolkien book. No, it's not the same. Oh, yes, completely. I understand how someone might be primed to be influenced by a piece of me. Oh, I see that all the time. Like whether it's influenced or literally just someone being like, okay, you're trying to make that character from that anime that you just watched, or you're just trying to make that character. Like I know a lot of people who are basically playing their fantasy game because they basically just want to recreate a character from some other piece of media. That I see all the time. I think it's really boring, but I see it all the time. So Jams, by the way, when I'm assuming about my description about the check to kill them. Jam says that's awesome to me, and Adam says, "Oh, I don't like that at all." Yeah. Right, but at the end of the day, Jess, you're the one making the decision, right? So, I just find it, I find it, you know, I find it that you're biased. You have your conscious biases, you have your unconscious biases. You are maybe, and again, I'm just spitballing here. Maybe other people have more unconscious biases than I do. And so they feel like it's surprising to them because they're not as aware of their own their own biases, maybe, you know? Yeah. Again, I don't know. I just find it I find it very uninteresting to me to do that. I like you know, like I love Avatar. Who is my character? Okay, well, I picked this playbook. My character is being torn between freedom and duty. Which one are you going to pick? I don't know. The dice are going to help decide. The countless interactions and dice rolls that we're going to play throughout the course of the game are going to decide which direction we go in. And I also have an agenda to make the story interesting and feral. So a combination of randomness from dice plus my sort of player/GM agenda, which is to create a good story, to create a good experience, is going to guide where my character goes far more than any sort of preconceived notion I have about who my character is. I don't really ever think about who my character is now that I'm actually thinking about it, in all honesty. The same way I don't like builds, I think applies also to, you know, these ideas that you're talking about. Like when I say I don't like builds, people maybe just assume it means like feats and skill progressions. And I'm going to take this at 2, I'm going to take this at 4, and take this at 6. But I think it also applies to what my character is and who their character is, you know? Right. So like that situation which you're describing, that's perfectly where I'm like, let's make a check. Right. That what you're describing is Smith deciding whether he's going to kill himself or not. And instead of deciding, he is rolling a dice. So I'd rather roll dice in that situation. Ideally, I'd rather have some sort of mechanic in the game that allows me to do that, you know? I don't want to make that decision. When I make that decision, it becomes less fun for me, I think, is what it really comes down to. I like to be surprised. I can't be surprised by my own actions. I can't tickle myself, and I can't be surprised by my own actions. At least that's my own personal lived truth. I don't know. I don't know if maybe I'm completely wrong, right? But right, you could also just lose your mind completely and decide to kill all the horses. So I mean, listen, I wouldn't probably. I mean, that's I think that's the most important part there. See, it's interesting that you say that, Adam, and because in many cases I have found that to be completely different. But to be clear, Adam, when you talk about what you're talking about here, what game systems are you talking about? I think that's a really important thing to talk about. Because what you're describing makes a certain amount of sense if we're talking about, say, Pathfinder 2 or 5th edition D&D. That's why when I play 5th edition in Pathfinder 2, I really don't have a character, you know? I just have more of an avatar that I sort of play through the venue of the game, right? Which is why, but I do like exploring characterization through a game, through the lens of a game, which is why I like games. Right. Which is why I like games that do that. Because this game is a game of character arcs and discovering through the game mechanics, right, who your character is and what your character is going to do. I think that's cool. Not everybody has to. I mean, it's totally fine if you don't. But what are my favorite ways that systems have gamified dilemmas like this? I mean, you know, all the systems that we love. I mean, Logan, I mean, like, obviously Burning Wheel, Torchbearer, you know, many PBTA games, Blades in the Dark games, Legends of Fire. I mean, there's so many games that have done this, right? I mean, they all do it to different ways and in different, you know, different ways and to different amounts, different degrees, but it doesn't have to be everything, you know. Not everything about my character has to necessarily be gamified. I'm not like, oh, am I thirsty? You know, like but also to be quite fair with you, I don't really care about those little FBT details either. So I also avoid most of that minor stuff that doesn't actually matter. I know it's just for sprinkling of flavor. You know, it's like another way of saying, like, you know, when I'm making a character, you know, like, I'm more worried about the dish than the seasoning, I suppose, is what I would say. You know, I bake, I don't cook, right? Interesting. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, so Adam answering my question says primarily 5e. You're correct, but recently been playing a lot more Pico and Land of Eam, and I have found a ton of success asking players to play in the first person as much as possible. Hey, cool. I mean, whatever works for you, Adam. I mean, I'm that's awesome. Okay, but here's the thing, like, I don't know. At some point, right, somebody's making a decision, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I just like, I mean, clearly, right, we can be put into a situation that we didn't expect to be in. Right? Like if we're sitting around and we're playing Fiasco and somebody says, you know, oh, we're gonna have to kill your mother. I didn't know that we were gonna be in a situation where that we were gonna be scheming to off my mom in the game. So obviously having that situation thrust upon me, I was like, oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know you were gonna take it that way. Cool. That's what makes improv and collaboration fun. But at the end of the day, the choice I make is not going to surprise me. It's a choice I'm making. And I'm telling you that Derek will make that choice based off of two factors. One is going to be, do I need white dice or black dice, right? Which is a fiasco thing. And the second is going to be, what is going to be more impactful to the table and or the story and or, the experience that is being generated by this particular social game construct. So my decision is more predicated in that, based off of any element of characterization. At no point will I ever be thinking, but what would my character do? I'm being completely honest with you. I would never think of that. I would never think about that. It wouldn't even enter my brain. I don't even know how I wouldn't know. It wouldn't even enter my brain. In fact, generally speaking, I think what would my character do never enters my thought process. Very rarely. I mean, maybe one time in 100. It's an extremely rare event for me. Most of the time, I think I'm mostly thinking about like what is going to make this experience, story, whatever, the best, and or if we're playing a competitive based game, I'd be thinking about like what do we need to do to win. No, probably not. I mean, it's not like I've never played Pico is ultimately it's a game by Felix Isaacs. It's somewhat derivative of Wild Sea. Played Wild Sea. I mean, I haven't read the rules. It's going to be a first look, but yeah. Christopher, what's up? In building character, have you ever built a character in Fate first to get an understanding and translate that to another system? Oh, hell no. Never done that. Number one, I barely like to build. I don't like to build characters anyways. But number two, I think if anything, that would just frustrate me, Christopher, because I'd be like, wow, I really cannot translate this particular character into a framework of, 5e or Pathfinder 2. So I would find that probably very frustrating, I would imagine. Great question, Logan. I cannot deny the fact that a lot of my experience is as a GM. We're all colored by our past experiences. That is definitely for sure. I'm going to completely agree with Jess, right? Which is, I don't necessarily know that I necessarily need to create garbage people, but my agenda is how do I make sure our interactions are interesting, right? Like, how do I create tension and conflict? How do I create excitement? How do I create danger? How do I create, memorable moments, Correct. True. Very true. Again, unless we're playing a game as a competition. Like if I'm playing, and if I'm playing in a dungeon-based game, like for example, when Smith ran his Demon World game, what was it called? No, it was called Demon Fire. And in Demon Fire was Smith basically going, this is my Gary Gygax S1, right? This is my campaign of Tomb of Horrors, right? I'm throwing down a gauntlet. This is Pathfinder 1, by the way. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I'm making everything hyper challenge mode. Everything is procedural. I'm removing my bias, but I'm telling you, everything is dialed up to 11. Bring your best. We're going to be using custom races from the race building guidebook, and you can be a Gestalt character with 2 classes, and you're going to make the most difficult, powerful. And I ended up with a paladin synthesis summoner who is basically more powerful than every other character in the party. I was the only character that never died, and in fact, when my character finally did die, which he didn't really die, he just got caught in an infinite maze aura, and as per the spell. But my job there was to just win. Right. So I'm not going to make a character who's like, oh, this will be really interesting and fun if my character's, a troll. I don't like if we're in it to win it, and we're playing a game where like consequences and that stuff matter. People who like make a character that is just there to be difficult and be like, well, my character would do something different that's just going to fuck everybody else over. I think that's being a very poor sport and being very problematic, and I dislike that. Yeah, I mean, we've had these discussions for a long time, Joel, and people talk about discovery writing versus planned writing, and people are like, oh, authors are like, oh, I'm so shocked at my character who did that, and I don't buy that either. So, again, not because I'm saying they're liars, I'm just saying I don't personally ever understand that, because I'm like, no, it's like, no, I was the one who wrote that. It came from me. I can't be like, well, I'm surprised by that I wrote that, To me, being surprised by your own actions, to me, is just an indication that you don't understand yourself, and you don't understand what makes you tick, and you don't understand what motivates you, and you don't understand all of your biases and what motivates you and what's driving you. Whereas I have tried for a very long time to be very, very much not like a Vulcan, but like I try to be more in control than that, So, what's up, Agile? Good to see you, buddy. Right. So they were trying to play LARP as competition, right? And you were trying to play LARP as a collaborative story experience. They were trying to beat the LARP, right? So you had that tension between the two of you. Well, I would argue, Jams, that being surprised by your bowling performance is probably just an indication that you don't know what you're doing. So, like, a pro is hardly surprised by their performance. They know, you know what I mean? They know what they know what they bowl. They know what they shoot in a round of golf. You know what I mean? Like, now, if you don't know what you're doing and there's a ton of randomness and variance to your sloppy attempts to bowl, then I imagine maybe you could be surprised at what the output is. I suppose. But like, wow, I'm shocked I got a 200. But then the next time you bowl, you might get like 100, or a 50 or something. So maybe people are mistaking variance and inconsistency for surprise, I don't know. Rowan, what's up? So fascinating how different we can all be. Ain't that the truth? I can't imagine not trying to get lost in my characters. Yeah. It's completely something I don't number one, I don't really do it, but also I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't really enjoy it. And that's true even in like novels. I never like I don't really ever empathize. Like I never like I never really like get inside of a character in a novel. They're always very much like, I'm reading a book. You know, I'm very aware that I'm reading a story. It's, you know, people are very different. What's up, Garblag? Good to see you. You know, Garblag, GM Scott added 5e heroic deeds to the first look queue. So whenever it's ready for go, we got to do a first look on it. Yeah, I don't, whatever. Those definitions are crazy. What's up, Logan? Take a good night, man. Random question about supporting you. Cool. We love those questions. Does YouTube membership also give me Discord access? No, it does not. Is that just the Patreon? It is just the Patreon because the Discord bot is set up in such a way that like the access to the Discord and your role is automated through the Patreon exclusive access. Like YouTube doesn't have the API to interact with our Discord in that respect. The first look queue is something in the Discord. Yeah. Discord members, aka patron members, can use their made up meta currency to that we have to buy to basically to put games onto the queue. So this is the current queue as it stands. So we've got Across 1,000 Dead Worlds, Wicked Ones, Die RPG, Pico, His Majesty the Worm, Middle Earth role-playing game, as in the one from like the 80s. Burning Wheel, Heroic Deeds, that's the pending one from 5e. Uncharted Worlds, Index Card RPG, which is not really a first look because I've actually played that, so it's kind of it's an unfair one, but there. Cryptomancer, Blade 68, Infinite Revolutions, Cyborg, some Furby thing that Jess just recently added, and then we have some stuff that's just been kind of hanging out there since no one actually put these on there. They were just there from like legacy stuff, so. I mean, Jorelson, I don't think you're wrong. You know, Jorelson said, I shrug when people say they want to get lost in their characters. All I'm hearing is a long preemptive apology for, I'm sorry. It's just what my character would do. I'm 100% in agreement with you. In fact, Emmanuel Galetto, author of Fabula Ultima, that's one of the main reasons they actually feel like immersion is dangerous. Because they feel like it means that you are putting the correct fictional portrayal of your character as a higher priority than the well-being, fun, and engagement of the group. So that is right, because fundamentally, if push came to shove, what do? Do you take the action that is true to your character, that is true to your vision of your character? Or do you take the action that is more in line / harmonious / fun for the group? Right? You can't pick both. You have to pick one. So I would say that if you are an immersionist, you would pick the thing that is better for your portrayal of your character, not the thing that is better for the fun and / well-being / entertainment / health or whatever of the group. So I think, now this isn't my argument, this is Emmanuel's argument, but I don't necessarily disagree with it, is that there's a certain degree of selfishness and even sort of anti-social behavior that is predicated in a very immersionist thinking. Now, again, I'm not saying that. Award-winning, multi-million-dollar Kickstarter author Emmanuel Galetto is saying that. Okay, the name of the name of the Furby game is called Furb House. Thank you, Jess. Yeah, those should be great, River Ray. In fact, actually, River Ray, I am planning on doing a kind of a. I might like, because again, I've got a lot of free time and I really want to crush this. So like, I might do like a run where I do like first look week, and I do like a first look every day for a week, and we try to get through like 7 of these, just to try to. A lot of these games have been hanging out on this list for like 3, 4, 6 months, and I just really want to crush them out. Right, it was the stuff that was left over from the pre-Q era, correct? Well, no, if Heroic Deeds 5e might be the best way to go for. Yeah. So, Jess says, yeah, I'm with you on that. My character is not a real person, and if someone tells me they don't like what my character is doing, we can mediate OOC. I can figure out what behavior is upsetting, and then, presumably, respect your X card, and I don't do the thing now or again. It's either not a part of my character before, or it's not a part of how our two characters interact, or whatever it needs to be. I mean, you are handling in a very mature and correct fashion. I don't know that everybody is so mature. If your character is an asshole to the party and you let it act like that, then you are also an asshole. That's generally my response, right? Because, for example, my character does something. They end up being very problematic and an asshole to the party. And maybe people are looking at me very sideways. And I go, guys, I'm so surprised by how my character acted just there. I mean, I'm almost disappointed I'm almost disappointed in Corin for doing that, I mean, I'm with you guys. I am really just disappointed in her behavior, and I think it's reprehensible, and I can see how this is just going to create a lot of problems for everybody, and I'm right with you. I mean, I'm just as mad at her. I'm shocked, honestly, at what occurred. I don't know what was going through her brain. It's so surprising to me, just what just happened, and everyone's looking at you like, motherfucker, you chose to do that. Oh, no, that was Corin. That wasn't me. I was shocked. I was surprised. I did not see where that was going. You can't blame me. That was Corin. You could be mad at Corin, but you can't be mad at me, because I was just as surprised as you. In fact, I might be more surprised. Right. Then the real rub-ins. And like, also, guys, I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, she is a tiefling, she does have kind of her bad bitch era, and she's kind of living that life, and, can't be mad at her. So anyways. Correct. Oh, Tom. I know people, who, I talk about how I actually think that the game, I'm totally fine with OOC talk and talking about the game, right? Meta talk, right? Not necessarily meta gaming, but just meta talk. We're talking about the game. We're like, we stop for a moment and we say, hey, hold on a sec. Like, what would make the most sense here? Like, for this next course of action. Like, and I know people, there are plenty of them inside of our own community who are like, oh, I hate when that happens. It takes me out of the game. It ruins my suspension of disbelief, yada, yada, yada. I hate being reminded that we're playing a game. Well, I think we can all agree to that, Rowan, but you'd be surprised how far some people can take it. And again, I don't think they're being malicious. I don't think they're being malicious in doing this. I just don't think that they realize that their actions have these kind of consequences. Right. Don't make me puke in disgust, Derek. It's too early for this. There you go. I was thinking, I don't know who this is. Table Runner Crispy. I don't know who that is. Although I think they got mentioned today on the Roll for Combat stream, but I didn't know who they were, and I just kind of nodded and smiled. But they hated Draw Steel because you cannot play it without talking out of character. Yeah. It's crazy to me. Right. Don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to ignorance. Right. Exactly. For sure. Right. Yes. Okay. Let's do this a different way. I show up to a kindergarten and I have a puppet. I have a ventriloquist dummy. And I'm like, how's it going, class? And everyone's like, hi. He's like, say hello to Mr. Bumpo. Hey, kids, how's everybody doing? And then like, oh, hey, Mr. Bumpo. And Mr. Bumpo's like, I think you should all fucking kill yourselves. And everyone's like, oh, whatever. And then like the teacher and the principal are like later on, I'm sitting there in the office and the pops are there. And I'm like, guys, it wasn't me. It was Mr. Bumpo. I just inhabit him so much. And, he's been going through a lot, I think. And I was just as surprised as you are that he started cursing out those kids. It was shocking behavior. I mean, honestly, I agree with you. I think he should be arrested. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to find a new partner, but I can't excuse his behavior. It was inappropriate. It was totally inappropriate. Oh, me? No. I am innocent. Yeah. Hides his eyes, coming in with the hot take. My DM forbids us from telling each other our current hit points. I said in character, if I rated my overall health, say on a scale from 0 to 66, I would be at, a 29. When I was doing that whole thing, Garblag, I was 100% and thinking of the Key and Peele Paroles puppet sketch, which is a fantastic sketch. Yo, hit that shit, dog. Oh, it's a great sketch. Then he shoots him in the head, and then he so good. Anyways, great sketch. But my point is, if that sounds ludicrous and silly to you, it is. I'm doing a little bit of a straw man, brick man, right? Maybe not a straw house, maybe it's a brick house. Wood house. I don't remember what order the stupid houses went in, but I just know that I think that I'm trying to make a point, somewhat of a metaphor of just saying like, that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Well, that's what it sounds like to me when people say I was shocked by my character's actions. That's all I'm saying. To me, I kind of hear the same thing, right? But yeah, anyways, I like dice. I like random events, steering our game in different directions. I like making choices, but I also like random elements, and I like, in fact, in some ways, the bigger the moment it is, the less control I want over it, right? Those are the things that I want to leave to dice. In fact, that's one of the things I love about most PBTA games, especially Magpie PBTA games, is PBTA games basically say, the things that this game actually cares about are moves. Anything that isn't a move, we're telling you, we don't really think that's important to this game, and we don't think it's really important to this type of stories that this game is trying to create. And so with those things, you're free to make whatever decision you want to make, and or if you try to do something and the game doesn't care about it, then the response officially in the game is the GM makes a move and will tell you what happens or tell you what it costs or whatever list of GM moves, which again is descriptive, not prescriptive. But it's the same thing with your character and what you think and what you feel. On the other hand, if we're playing a game of, say, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and somebody comes up to you, and your character is sort of was raised as sort of the chosen one, and your job is to fulfill your great destiny, but you also kind of shirk that because you want to be able to experience the world on your own, and someone openly calls you out to live up to your principle of duty, you don't get to decide how you react, because that's something this game very much cares about. There's a call someone out move, and we need to roll dice. You don't get to decide. That decision has been taken away from you. And because the game is saying that's an important decision, and you don't get to make important decisions. So I like that. What game? Avatar Legends. I mean, this isn't the core book. This is the Uncle Iroh's adventure guide, but this game, Avatar Legends. So, and I find that to be wonderful, which is fantastic. Nice, nice, nice. Oh, the you have the collector's edition, the special edition. Yeah, yeah. I think it has Aang and Korra. Actually, I think it has both. Now, with you picking public shaming, I will add that this is one of the reasons I do love. It's one of the reasons I love, you know, like random tables and stuff. You know, I think that's really cool. Well, so Voy, I have a theory. It's a very weak theory, but I have a theory that now, in some cases, I think it is affected by your own personal experiences. You know, what was it like for you growing up, and what was school like, and what is your life like, and all that. I mean, there's a lot of personal stuff, but I think at the end of the day, I think it also just comes down to, you know, your own personal style and preference. I think some people play role-playing games for the power fantasy, because in their real life, they feel like they don't get to make decisions, or they feel like the decisions they make are made for them. And maybe they feel powerless. And they want to play role-playing games because they want to have great power. And that doesn't necessarily mean having like a superhero PC. I just mean they want to be able to have control. I think there are other people, and I think I fall into this latter group, who lead very, for the most part, safe, stable, secure, predictable, enjoyable, not stressful lives. And I play role-playing games so that I am not in control. I play role-playing games for the anti-power fantasy, right? I want things to go badly for me. I want to have decisions taken away from me. I want to be forced, because of some random dice rolls, to make horrible decisions. Now, in real life, I don't have to do that. I mean, my life's not perfect or anything like that. But again, I'm just speaking my own personal experience here. But again, I think it's not necessarily like, you know, causal, but maybe there's a correlation between, you know, what kind of gaming experience that you want to have. Yeah. I mean, the trope, Tom, is going into BDSM for sure. Correct. There's probably, you know, some element, you know, of that, for sure. But, you know, using your metaphor, right? You know, I want to be in role-playing games, I want to be the sub, right? So in role-playing games, I want to be the submissive, right? And I want the dice, in this particular instance, right, to be the dom. So yeah. There's a certain element to that. Whereas maybe other people feel like in real life, they're the sub, and they're like, damn it, I want to be the dom for once, and I want to get to do what I want, and I want to make decisions, and I want to say what I want to say, and I want to do what I want to do, and I don't want some stupid right dice or some stupid rule or some stupid whatever to tell me what I can and can't do, right? So anyways, as I said, it's a very half-baked theory, but Mostly the result of 2 a.m. midnight ramblings on a Wednesday night, right? Nice. Can we leave business, dev, sales, and marketing alone? Yes, perhaps. So now Whoople wants to. I play RPGs to hang out with 70 plus other patrons and build a really cool world. Now, Whoople, I think that's a great reason to play role playing game, is because you want to create a expansive, collaborative, story. Not just a story, but an entire world. And to do so in the context of a Knights of the Last Call mega game, such as Northern Reaches, which is starting, it starts in 4 days. Technically, it's Thursday, April 20th, Monday. Northern Reaches starts. We have to add a dice dom. We'll have a new emoji when you sign up. Are you an RPG dom or are you an RPG sub? Now, what did Jess say? Did Jess have a hot take? Is now a good time to posit to the court? X card is a safe word, and anyone who doesn't want to play with an X card or other safety tools is telling on themselves that they don't want a freaky feral game. Wait, are we saying that X cards are bad, or are we saying that X cards give people permission to avoid uncomfortable spaces? Because I kind of agree with both. Huh. That's interesting. Hyde says, I'm not convinced by this theory because I find the vast majority of groups play a style where the GM or adventure path is really the one in control. Players have the agency to use their feats, etc. Well, Hyde says, what I would counterposit is that a lot of the modern RPG systems, 5e and Pathfinder 2 in particular, especially when people end up screaming and running onto Reddit and screaming about my GM fucked something up, but all like the balance, people's obsession with balance, is because playing in a game like Pathfinder 2 or an adventure path or 5e is designed, and in a system like 5e with its death save rules is really designed so that your character can't really lose, and can't really, go in any sort of direction. Tasty Trekkie, thank you for the super chat. But generally speaking, let's try to avoid, using religious icons and figures that may be very sacred and important to many people as a kind of a joke. It's just my personal taste. I'm not a Christian, but I respect those that are. So I'd appreciate it if you avoided doing that in the future. Appreciate the super chat and all, but yeah, let's try to avoid that if we could. Thank you. In fact, X card. I'll apply the X card there. Tasty Trekkie. What is an X card? Okay, so now let me tell you what I like. The way I was taught the X card is very different from the way that the X card is sort of presented nowadays. But the basic idea of the X card was that when you were playing a role-playing game that has much D&D is pretty simple, I mean, the only thing D&D has is like wholesale genocide and the murder of intelligent human beings. So nothing offensive, even remotely. But as soon as you start playing an RPG that gets into like really heinous shit, like maybe people having romantic feelings, people expressing love, devotion, maybe even people having appropriate consensual sexual relations, people become very, very uncomfortable. And some of the early, I originally knew it from the PBTA circles at conventions when you're playing with strangers who you don't necessarily know their boundaries. And it was an index card. And on one side of it was drawn a big red X. And the idea was that everybody there were a couple of these cards around the table. And if somebody started going down a line that you were uncomfortable with, you could move the card out in front of you. And it was a way for everybody to just, you didn't have to explain why, not in your place, but also, too, as a way to not break up the game and turn the whole thing into a big debate. It was just enough to know that wherever line we're going, it's not appropriate. We should deviate. However, when I learned about the X card, it was actually a binary thing, because on the other side of every X card I originally found, it wasn't called the X card. I don't even remember what it was called, because on the other side was usually a circle or with a green check mark, or just a green check mark. The idea being that was a way to encourage players to go further, to get deeper. Because, again, somebody might be going down something and they're kind of like, I don't know if this group is good with it. And it was a way for you, without, interrupting them and breaking up the flow of the conversation or the game, and basically be like, I'm giving you, I'm basically the equivalent of being like, yeah, keep going. This is great. I'm loving this. I love where this is going. I'm totally online. I'm totally on board, even though I'm being like, I'm horrified, but this is great. We should go down this line. And so it was supposed to be used so that you could course correct and to either stay away from a certain topic or area or lean in to a certain area. So I'll give you an example. It might have been the last time I got, enthusiastic consent. The last time I got X-carded was, believe it or not, we were playing Monster Hearts, and I was playing with a group of friends, so people I knew, but I knew them from the Magic community. I didn't know them as much from the role. They hadn't really role played a bunch with me, except for like my friend Alyssa. She had played with me a bunch, obviously. And we were playing Monster Hearts, which is about supernatural creatures in high school. And there was a character, one of the player characters was, I think, a vampire. Now, she had the appearance of a teenage girl, but she was reality, whatever, 500 years old or whatever. And essentially, she was seducing her biology teacher, okay, or whatever. And, he was basically into it. And basically, they were nearing what was going to, we weren't going to graphically detail it, but yes, they were basically going to have a sexual relationship. And this, one of the people that I was playing with was at the time a student teacher. He was, in school to be a teacher. And he basically just pulled out the X card. And he didn't need to explain it, but he basically just said, I'm very uncomfortable with this. That is a huge red flag for me. And I'm just not comfortable with that at all. And I said, that's totally fair. And it wasn't vital to the success of I wasn't trying to tell any specific story. It was just the way that the thing was going. And so then we, kind of, veered away from that. And I think that was the last time I got X carded. And that was 2016. So that was 10 years ago. Now, to be clear, since 2020, I haven't played as much in person with strangers because of COVID and all that other jazz. And I no longer play con games with strangers anymore, generally. So, but anyways, that's an example of getting X carded and why I got X carded and why the person X carded me. Now we're talking about where do we fall on the sub dom line. There we go. That's fantastic. We were playing Call of Cthulhu, and the scene involved a murdered, dismembered person described in clinical detail. Caused me to wig out unknowingly. X card stop it. And that's a great example for you personally, Well, it's especially helpful. I mean, again, the X card concept was literally designed for the convention space, as far as I know, because you don't know the people you're playing with. You don't know what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with, right? If you're playing a Call of Cthulhu game In fact, I remember Ben of our Patreon fame, although he's currently on a hiatus. He described this Call of Cthulhu scene where basically like the cultists were basically like melting newborn babies into some sort of amorphous, horrific mass. Well, imagine you were playing that at a convention, and you were playing with a young man who had just lost his baby, in childbirth, or or to SIDS or something, right? And like that's obviously, if you were that person's GM and you knew them well, you would never ever bring that up, right? But it gets to the question of like, what is the value of a Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, right? Let's assume for a moment that you don't have any sort of trauma around infanticide. What is the value of a role-playing game highlighting and focusing in graphic detail a bunch of baby fetuses and corpses being poured into a gigantic cauldron and melted into some sort of weird monstrosity abomination? I don't know, but I don't like horror, so I don't know. Like I don't know. Yeah, I guess the answer is that's why Derek doesn't like horror, because I don't get it. It just seems pointless and facile to me. But whatever. I guess. But now we're getting into like the people. It's like oh, why do you like to be hitting the balls? And well, 'cause I like the feeling. I don't know. I want to feel something. Okay, I'm good on that. I don't need to feel that. So there you go. I'm being X-carded on my own stream. Yeah. No, I think they are an invaluable tool, and I completely encourage their use. Full stop. Now, what might be a hot take is that if you are X-carding a lot, you may need to be asked to leave the game. And I don't think that is unfair. And I don't think that of the group or the GM or whatever to be like, hey, I've noticed that a lot of the situations that are coming up in this Call of Cthulhu game are making you uncomfortable. Maybe this isn't the right fit for you. Tom, you say that, but come on, Tom. Because I'm not being inclusive, Tom. Because I'm being, right? I'm being exclusionary. I'm not welcoming everybody at my table and a table, blah 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 blah. There's a whole thing there. Correct. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of horrible, awful takes of idiot, stupid, dumb people on the internet, and the role-playing game sphere is not immune to that, unfortunately. AW means Apocalypse World, FL4G. You're asking what is a sex move? Is that what you're asking? I mean, we're just talking about X-Card and all this other stuff and things. Apocalypse World very famously had game mechanical interaction faces for what happened if you had sex with a character. I mean, I think that's fine too. If you say, "Hey, listen, this is the type of game I'm running," and if you have a problem with that, you can go play at someone else's table. I think that's also fine, for sure. I think in general. There's this, it's a weird thing, right? It's like, are you being a dick if you're not trying to work hard to include people, or, are you just being respectful and mindful of your own time? We live in strange times. We live in strange times. Well, again, and I can't stress this enough, the X card was designed for convention pickup games. Its use I also think that Session Zero, actually, I don't think it is the best safety tool. I think the X card is still the best safety tool because no one can communicate everything. And also, you know what? Tastes can change. But ultimately, I will say that the X card was designed for a group of people and players who you don't know at all, right? Man, people, I'll be honest with you, some people have some wild experiences. And I've been role-playing for a long time. And you know what, FL4G? I don't blame you one bit. I'm running a reverse isekai game where D&D characters are pulled in their 60s into our, and then and got slapped in the face with 20 minutes of explicit sex scenes. So, yeah. I wouldn't blame you for that at all. But again, it's a whole can of worms, Because again, we just accept, right, that you're going to sit down, you're going to play your rated G D&D game, and you're just going to leave a trail of hacked and dismembered bodies behind you. I've described it before, but the final battle against the villain of the first Pathfinder 2 adventure was perhaps the most violent, graphic assault of a group of men on a female that I have ever seen in book, film, television, or otherwise. And this was Pathfinder 2. But it consisted of a large group of men holding down a relatively frail, short woman, beating her repeatedly in the back and heads while she was prone on the ground and being sat or, wrestled and held down, and violently, psychically damaging her, causing her intense emotional pain to the point where she was vomiting, until she was beaten to death. I mean, it was... Now, what am I describing? Oh, I'm describing grapple and knocking someone prone and, casting a bard spell, aka psychic horror or something like that. I don't remember the name of the spell. But, and obviously making attacks while the person's prone. I mean, that's what you do, I'm just saying, like, what I just described was a PF2 fight. I'm describing 5 PCs, who all happen to be male, fighting the villain of the Fall of Plaguestone, who is a elf alchemist, female elf alchemist, and she got knocked prone, she got grappled, pinned, she was attacked while prone and pinned, she got her mind psychically raped by the bard through the casting of like a psychic damage spell that causes such intense emotional pain that the character begins vomiting and becomes sickened, right? I mean, what I just described is a PF2 game, but nobody ever thinks of their PF2 games like that. But it is. It really is. You just don't think of it that way. Like if you saw that, if we took that fun PF2 tactical fight, oh man, we comboed up. We used our 3-action economy to really take her out, man. But if you like converted that into like a movie scene, it would be like rated hard R, like it would be like not appropriate for some viewers, it's just crazy. Anyways, I remember being like, well, that was fucking horrifying. That was horrifying. But again, we don't, and like, what am I supposed to do? You know, fade to black in the middle of the, I'm supposed to fade to black in the middle of the boss fight? What do you mean fade to black? We flanked her. Yeah. Very true, Jorlson. And again, everybody's totally fine with that. But then, you know, the moment you start talking about like feelings and I don't think I like D&D anymore. Yeah, well. This is the veil part of lines and veils. Right. Look, I didn't make up what that spell does in Pathfinder 2, okay? It was probably like Eric Mona or something. I mean, FF4G, you're not wrong, man. You're not wrong. That's also very true, that guy. Most people stop role-playing when we roll for initiative. It's like, okay, cool, now we're playing Tactical Grid Minis game. I'm sorry. I've ruined D&D for so many people. Listen, Rowan, you don't got to tell me, Rowan, if you're not familiar, if you're not aware of this, I went through and tier rated every single spell in Pathfinder 2 at the time that we did it, which was like right when like Rage of Elements, I think, came out. So yes, I'm aware that it has some nutty spells. I'm aware of inside ropes. And more importantly, I'm aware of some of them being completely and totally insane / doozies. and being just nutty. I know. I'm just kidding Eric Mona because he's obsessed with weird cultism and strange, you know, Cthulhuian gaslight vibes. I read somebody posted, they're like, thank God. They're like, someone's like, thank God Paizo is doing this 13 Omens. Can we finally get, you know, Eric Mona's occultism crap out of PF2? Like this, can his outlet now just be this 13 Omens game? I saw somebody post that today and I was like, I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, so like that's right. Like, what am I supposed to do with that situation, right? Like, okay, like yeah, that's a great example of that, right? I'm playing a game. The supervillain is in a loving gay marriage with another villain, and a player X cards it, and they say, I'm a dedicated, born again Christian, and I think the Bible says that homosexuality is a sin, and I think that is wrong, and it makes me uncomfortable, and blah 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 blah. And I've just played an X card, and you need to respect my X card. And of course, my natural response is to tell that person to go fuck themselves. But like, you see, it's like there is no real solution to these issues. That's the actual answer. X card, lines, veils, session 0. None of it actually solves the real problem. Ultimately, we like to pretend it gives us control, and it does somewhat to a certain extent, but it doesn't really. So, yeah. But let me tell you something. I also, you know, again, I try to be respectful of other people and other people's beliefs and all this other stuff. But yeah, it's tough. Meanwhile, while other people are horrified and never want to play again, Jorlson's like, I have such a thirst to play again. So, sure, Karama. And you know what? For some people, right, the game is just tactical mini combat adventure. And that's fine. That's good. And you don't have to worry about that, right? It's like a whole side note, but again, I've said this before, is, you know, this is the advantage of alignment in D&D. Evil wasn't just evil. It was capital E, evil. And anybody who was evil deserved death. And so heroes only fought evil characters, and evil creatures deserved the death that was given to them. And yes, it was very, whatever, I guess, racist or whatever, but it solved this issue of making it not necessarily horrific. So that's pretty rough, that guy. It is not possible to please everyone. And I know this because I have a YouTube channel. Sure. Again, I agree with you completely, Jess, but I am going to say there's a certain element of I don't know what I call it, like performativeness, I think, in certain elements of the RPG sphere, where it's kind of implied that, like, if you're not respecting the X card, you're being a bigot, you're being a terrible person. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Again, remember who I am and what I believe in. You're going to see lines and veils and X cards talked about in woke leftist RPGs. You're not going to see the X card talked about in Axe, Adventure Conquer King. You're not going to see the X card talked about in Fatal. So the X card is sort of inherently set up within the RPG space, I think, to mostly defend liberalism, not conservatism. And so it does feel a little bit like unfair, I guess would be the term, even though, again, it's totally fair, and ultimately the GM is just going to run whatever the fuck they want to run and kick out whoever doesn't want to be there. But like, just my natural sort of understanding is that the X card is there to protect gay people. It's not there to protect Christians. Like, that's basically what I'm saying. Like, again, I'm oversimplifying it, but it is a very sort of political. There's a political edge and element to it, is all I'm saying. Full stop. Like, yeah, puritanical progressivism. Sure, I could call it that. Yeah. Yeah, there's an idea that the X card is sacred, and if you're not following the X card, you're being a jerk. Meanwhile, the X card is there. Now, again, I mean liberal politically. Listen, if we start trying to apply semantics to the modern day political gamut, we're going to end up in a really confusing place. Again, I'm not here to talk about my political beliefs. You guys know that I'm very liberal and I'm very, progressive and I'm very democratic in that way. But, I don't make a big deal about it. But I'm just trying to say is that the concept of the X card is itself kind of a liberal. Yes, I mean American liberalism. Let me be very clear about that. It is late, so we have our European, actions. Yes, that is kind of what I'm trying to say. Everyone asks for inclusivity until the Christians ask for a seat at the table. Yes, that is what I'm trying to say. Now, is that a universal truism? No, but what I am saying is that the generally accepted understanding of what the X card is that if you heard a story about a convention and somebody was like, I don't think it's right that there's a gay person and I'm playing an X card, most people would be like, boo that man. But if another person was like, I'm playing an X card because I feel like that person's being very bigoted and very, but they would be like, oh, that player was right to play the X card. Right. So like it feels like it should swing both ways, but it doesn't, Yeah. Anyways, point is, we can change the topic. It's fine. But I think there's elements. Unfortunately, RPGs are not immune to the political divide, and there's a certain political divide that does occur within the space for sure. And generally speaking, I would argue that narrativist games tend to be more liberal, and simulationist games tend to be more conservative, generally speaking. But again, setting table culture doesn't mean anything if you're playing at a convention with strangers, which is where the X card originated. And that's all I was trying to say. It's like the X card was never designed to be a catch-all mechanic to even really be used at your typical Friday night table. It was designed to be it's a bad solution is better than no solution to random pickup games happening at conventions with some relatively radically new RPG concepts that didn't just include the wholesale genocide of intelligent creatures, which we had been doing for 30 years and everyone was very comfortable with, right? I'm going to go kill the goblins and all of their kin. But the moment you started talking about, sex or whatever, people got very triggered. Ooh, new topic. Fantasy cheese beefcake art, good or bad? I've seen a lot of art on this channel, and the only art that ever got me was that pumpkin spice art. But art is art. I'm not here to say it's good or bad. I will say it'll be interesting to see how Deathbringer does. Because the decision that, Roll for Combat and all that other stuff, Professor Dungeon Master, obviously guided by the author, the designer, but, RFC is obviously handling the publication. They're going with that kind of Frank Frazetta, Boris Vallejo, vibe, and that means guys with 12-pack abs and girls with chainmail bikinis as part of their sort of art style and art treatment for Deathbringer. And I'm now I'm gonna say some stuff and you can take it as you like it. I go to a lot of conventions and I go to a lot of seminars. And in fact, I go to a lot of these seminars to act as, audio-visual guy and record it and help set up the audio. And of course, I work at the booth of Roll for Combat, where sometimes people like Professor Dungeon Master will go and hang out at the Roll for Combat booth to sign for, a couple hours and talk to the fans. And I go to a lot of seminars and I go to a lot of games, a variety of different types. And let me just say that when I go to a seminar that is been a Professor Dungeon Master Deathbringer hype panel, the demographics are like 95% men in their 50s. There are not a lot of women to be seen. I for those of you who are not aware of this, I've been going to conventions for 25 years. Women really have a significant presence now at a lot of these conventions that they just, quite frankly, never did have. When I went to my first Gen Con, I would say it was less than 20%. And now it is, in many cases, I think it is very close to 50-50. Especially at a game, more like a PAX or a Gen Con, which is a little bit more just about the entire celebration of nerd culture. It's something, a little bit more hardcore focused, like maybe Origins. It might be like 60-40, but it really is more inclusive. But I can tell you that, the fans of Deathbringer are a different demographic. I will say that. So. Correct. To be clear, they are equal opportunity sexist, right? It is beefcake men. It is, bikini, chainmail bikini women. It's the whole. It's it's equal opportunity exploitationism, which is fantastic. Pumpkin spice got a rise out of it. So listen, I like all women, but there is a certain type that can get me, and unfortunately, usually not for the better. Usually those things kind of end messily or not well. I'll say that. Oh yes, plenty of eye candy for the girls and gays, for sure. Assuming that is your vibe, but yeah. Yeah, that's cool, Beowulf. I think that's neat. No, absolutely. The old scale male. I mean, I'll give you a great example. In the last 12 months, I think I've been to 7 or 8 gaming conventions, and for the most part, very, very diverse. Right? Diverse races, diverse, and by that I mean blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics. Right? A very diverse race. A lot of different genders, a lot of different sexual orientations, a lot of different presenting, just tons of variety. I went to GaryCon a few weeks ago, and you know what GaryCon mostly was? Stuffy old white men. Just going to call it what it is. It was. In fact, I was there. I'm a stuffy old white man, or at least middle-aged, right? I was there with Stephen Glicker, also a stuffy old middle-aged white man, right? So there were a lot of people there. In fact, I think I even made a comment. I was like, it felt like I walked into a time machine and went to a convention 20 years ago. It was definitely a bunch of stuffy old white men. Not all stuffy white men. Not all stuffy old white men. There were women there, for sure. There were people of color there, for sure. There were people of different, people presenting differently, non-binary, etc. They were for sure there. I met a woman who there was a costume contest, and just the level, how you get to this as your costume. So this is a deep cut for those of you who don't know this, but basically she played. I can't remember her name, her character's name. I mean, it was Raceland. She was Raceland, but she was like, okay, she's like. Because she met me the day before the costume contest. And then she described this to me. And then she showed up the next day in her costume. And she said, okay, here's my deal. So, Dragonlance? I said, of course. And she said, you remember how when Raceland took the test of high sorcery? I go, correct, right? He took it away with. She goes, right. When he took the test of high sorcery, right, what did it do? And I said, made his skin gold, gave him the hourglass eyes, broke his body, right? She goes, right. Imagine if it did all that, but it also turned him into a big-tittied woman. She's like, that is what I'm cosplaying as. She's like, I'm cosplaying as if when Raceland took the test of high sorcery, it broke his body, it made him weak, it gave him hourglass eyes, golden skin, large boobs, and a woman. And I was like, all right, respect. And sure enough, the next day, coming down the aisle with her, presumably, there may have been a big naturals in there, maybe. But sure enough, the next day, coming down the row with her friend, partner, girl, I don't know what the relationship there was, but her female friend, partner, was a woman, with a robe and hunched over and kind of weakly moving around with her staff. Gold skin, hourglass contacts, big old bitties just falling out the corset. And I was like, well, just like I said on the tin, you delivered it. So that was at GaryCon, right? So that clearly wasn't just old white man, but that was the exception. Let me just put it that way. That was the exception, not the rule. So, but there were moments of light. Jess says, also, I just realized today that I am a special guest at a local con, and of the 8 special guests, I am the only non-man. There you go. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I don't, it's a little bit more complicated than that. There is a definite element of the sort of goth. No, it's not so much like alternative emo. Yes, but like goth can be a little bit too far for me. Well, that's one of the things I think that's very important. I mean, yes, I do think there's a full stop. I think there's a massive demographic difference between OSR games, and it is mostly men. Now, this is, I think, there are many things that Kelsey's Shadow Dark does, but I think the one thing that Shadow Dark does, and I don't think enough people talk about it because, it's probably not polite to do so. But OSR, the games associated with, let me put it this way. Over the last 10, 20 years, there have been a number of producers, designers, content creators who have been associated with the alt-right or, whatever, reprehensible politics. And 9 times out of 10, they have some sort of OSR or OSR-like game. So, again, that's not causal. There's a correlation maybe, but it's not causal, right? It's not like that's the case, but it's like Slytherin, right? Just because you're in Slytherin doesn't mean you're a bad guy, but everybody that went bad was in Slytherin, right? That's, I think, the kind of the way we should look at it. But what I think OSR, though, if you are a woman or you're, non-cis het or whatever, you might be very interested in OSR play, but you feel like it is not a community for you. And Kelsey, I think, being a woman, young, I mean, she's a little younger than me, but a younger woman, I don't know if she and I are still young, but whatever, a younger, someone who didn't like, I don't know, like used to play in Gary Gygax's basement. But to have someone of her, of her age, gender, sexual orientation, but also coming at it from a place of, I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up playing with people who played at Gary Gygax's table. I have this incredible lineage, right, that kind of gives me sort of, I'm a true Scotsman in that respect. In fact, I can claim more of a direct lineage to Gary Gygax and Lake Geneva than all of you posers can, right? So she has this like moral authority over the OSR, but she also represents these historically disenfranchised demographics who might have felt uncomfortable going to the OSR. And so in a weird way, her just making this game gives maybe a feeling of safety or permission, maybe, to a lot more people who to feel comfortable playing her game that they might not feel comfortable playing otherwise. I don't know if that's actually true or if that's a thing. I don't know if that you could ever do that without some extensive polling, but it is something that I have, I've thought about it. Yeah, I think that was a huge deal. I think that was an absolutely huge deal of it. I mean, she had a lot of things going for her. To be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, hey, if I'm going to make an old school game, I have this respect and response, and appreciation for the old school play for sure, but well, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, and I've only met Taryn a few times, but I would say that Taryn is also incredibly welcoming, and he does a really great job of doing that. So I think he promotes a community that is inclusive. So I think that's huge. And again, I think that the walls and the barriers are just they're going to come down. They're going to come down. They're going to come down. But we can't deny the fact that for the first 30 plus years of this hobby's existence, it really was very much, in many cases, almost exclusively the province of white nerdy guys, and so you know it takes a while to break free from that. It's funny too because you know, one of the things that I thought I did this. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on a sec here. You guys get to see a live feed. Let me see if I can find it here. All right, wait 1 second. Well, I mean, I'm still going to be here, but just I'm looking for footage. We can look at footage live that I haven't edited. It's completely unedited footage. Okay. All right, that's not it. Okay, that's not it. This is riveting footage. Okay, now, again, as I stressed before, this Gary Con, Rowan, thank you for stopping by. It was good, great to have you here. Gary Con was a lot of white people, but white men's, but it was also, admittedly, somewhat like I came away with it more encouraged than discouraged. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. So, okay, here we go.
At Gary Con 2026, and again, I want to stress that for the most part, this has been a very, very interesting experience. I knew that there was going to be a lot of people playing old school games here, but what I did not expect to see is just how passionate and enthused these gamers are. These are people who've been playing this hobby for an extremely long time, and for the most part, they are just as excited today to play these games as they were, 40, 50 years ago, which is really, really, really exciting and interesting. The other thing is, at first, I thought, okay, this is also almost entirely white, middle-aged, or older men. But today, I have had the opportunity to see that there's actually a fair amount of people here that come from a wider range of demographics than I would have thought possible.
This was after the big tittied Raceland.
And what I think is really, really interesting about this is that it shows that these were not people that were playing the game in the 70s or 80s. They were either not born yet or, quite frankly, just not part of the demographics that were playing the game at that time. And that means that they have joined the hobby, they have joined this style of gaming in a more modern era. And I think that's one of the things that's really important to note about that is that these gamers, these old school gamers, people who've been gaming literally in the Lake Geneva area since the 1970s, are so welcoming to these gamers because I think they realize that this is the future of their style of play. This is them passing the torch. They know that if they don't do this, the hobby will die with them. And
Are you live streaming?
hey, what's up? No, I am not live streaming, but I am. I'm recording a vlog.
Oh, well, enjoy.
This is Dr. Waits, everybody. What's up, Dr. Waits?
I got interrupted by a patron. There it is. But like, I made this observation because I was like, oh, it's interesting. I came in there being like, oh, it's just all a bunch of old people. But what I did see, which was really encouraging, that while there wasn't a lot of women and whatever, there, the ones that were there were like, they were almost like extra welcomed. And I was trying to say there that my observation was that I think that this older group of grognards realizes, every year there was a very sobering, I don't know if I got pictures of it, but there was a dry erase board or a, like a bulletin board area where people could write notes or post pictures or messages of basically friends that had passed. And obviously, like before we even got there was already, some of the, legendary, some of the luminaries from the TSR era who had passed in the last year, like Gene Rabe and stuff like that. And Tim Kask. and they were already up there. But like, the Gary Con's been going on for 8-9 years, but people have been gaming in that area for 30 or 40 years. And, every year it's like, hey, yeah, Bill passed last year, Todd passed last year, Greg passed last year. And I think they realize that there's like, there's fewer days ahead than there has been, behind. And I think that they are, as a community, very interested and encouraged to try to like spread the gospel, of what they view as like their style of gaming. And so for the women or the gays or the Hispanics or the blacks who are there, I think that for the most part, these old, grizzled grognards were like, yeah, come, sit down. Let me show you the ropes. Let me teach you. Let me teach you how we did it back in 1978. And I thought that was actually really cool. I thought that part was really, dare I say, heartwarming, for sure. Has anyone ever been at a table that excluded women? Because my experience has always been tables go out of their way to make women feel super welcome. Yes, I have been at a table that excluded women, and I was part of the decision to exclude them. Now, this has happened twice. Once because I was like in college, and we were playing at my local game, and we had two. I think we had like. Now listen, I was a young man, but I was playing with my group of friends, and I had 2 or 3 women. I had 2 or 3 women who had joined the campaign. 2 of them were women that we worked with, and one of the women was somebody that somebody knew from school. And they came, and they were not the one. Actually, the one was new RPGs to a certain extent. I definitely remember 2 of them were for Earth Dawn campaigns. I remember that. And unfortunately, most of my young male horny dumb friends basically made assholes of themselves, made the women what I can only imagine very uncomfortable, and ultimately, kind of ruined the session with their very horrible, nerdy, clumsy attempts to flirt with these girls. And I basically made this sort of decision that I'm like, okay, no more girls. That was like, as a younger man. Now, later on, we had a campaign that it featured several women that were girlfriends of myself and other party members. And that was a problem because of relationships and immaturity and being able to handle that. So that wasn't more of a generic women in general, but we made a decision, and we're like, let's let no more girlfriends. That would, we don't want relationship tensions at the table. And it was the whole thing. So now they ultimately all stemmed from immaturity, but at the time, those were the 2 times that has happened to me. So absolutely, totally part of growing up, learning the good from the bad, but but also too, let me rephrase it. Part of the immaturity was also on the other side of things. Like, for example, I can tell you that this was not mine. This was another. I had a friend, part of my gaming group, and his girlfriend wanted to come, but not because she wanted to play D&D with us. She came because she didn't, she had interdependency issues and hated the idea of her boyfriend, spending a night away from her or spending the night having fun while she was just sitting at home bored. And she was like, I want to come, but really she didn't really care about playing D&D. She just wanted to hang out with her boyfriend. And I didn't really have a whole lot of patience for that. So that was like definitely a problem. I mean, that would be a problem. That's not a women problem. That could just be any sort of problem, right? Like I could just as easily have a girl player, a female player who wants to bring her husband or her girlfriend or whoever who has actually no interest in playing the game. They're just there to like hang out and either, supervise their partner or, try to make it into a social time. And I was like, I wasn't interested in that type of experience, So that's not really a female thing. It just so happened that all of my friends were cis het, so their partners were all women, It just worked out that way. Now, other than that, no, I've never had any problems with that or anything. In fact, some of my favorite role-playing moments involve people like my friend Alyssa, who you may have remembered a couple years back. She was on a couple of our con streams and stuff like that and all that other stuff. But I'm sure you've had people be very weird to you at con. But to be fair, I've had people be very weird to me too, and I'm not a woman, so I can only imagine what it has been like for you. But correct, yes. So specific women, specifically partners. We excluded partners. It wasn't women; it was just partners. Again, all my group happened to be cishet males, so that meant women. But yeah. Yeah, I didn't want people who were just there to hang out and, for social time. And more importantly, I didn't want them to be there just so that they could like keep an eye on their, behaviors. But again, this is also why I no longer play in pickup con games. I've told this before, but it got to the point where it was so bad that I used to tell my, girlfriend or whatever, hey, I'm going to a game, text me or call me in 20 minutes and just fake a phone call. And she would, the phone would ring and I'd be like, oh, sorry guys, I have to take this. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I understand completely. Great. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry. I have to go, because it was just like so bad. And of course, obviously there was a few instances where it was okay. And I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, I'll talk to you later. And it was just, sorry about that. I'll keep it on silent. And then I'd stick around. But most of the time I was realizing 90% of my groups pickup groups were just terrible. So I just kind of gave up, now. Oh yeah, it was very much the call me in case the date is awful. Yes, I'm running some sort of like, 90s rom-com playbook there. And now this is where I put on my like D&D 5e sucks. Now, is it related? I don't know, but I will say this became a problem after 5e came out. I never had this problem back in the day. But I noticed starting around 2014, 2015, 2016, right up till COVID, when, at that point that was the first year I didn't go to any conventions, was COVID. But like those last 4 or 5 years before COVID, man, whew, like the quality of the pickup groups at conventions just went to shit. Now, is that because of 5e? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But it was very suspicious. Oh, yes. Now I have a custom curated list. In fact, actually, Lollipop, one of the things that I need to do tomorrow is start finalizing my schedule for the Patreon games that I'm going to be running for patron members over the next, 3 to 6 months. For sure. Which is great. That's awesome. I love it. It's also why like Origins is going to be so cool for me, because this is a group of patrons, people I know fairly well. But also, even if I've never played with them ever, right, the fact that they're sort of pre-selected for essentially my type of gaming should indicate that they're going to be a pretty cool person to play with. So hopefully we'll have a lot of fun with that. Yes, very excited to be playing and not just talking about games. It's important, Lollipop. There's only so much I can say. I mean, I struggle with that a lot. People are like, it's so funny because people will be like, ugh, I'm sick. I'm so tired of hearing Derek say the same things. Meanwhile, I get people who still ask me like, Derek, you need to give more advice about how to GM PBTA. And I'm like, I have done so much advice for PBTA. How much more advice for PBTA can I do? But it is important that, you don't lose touch with the reason that you fell in love with this hobby to begin with and just turn it into a business. This is kind of getting to what we were talking about today on Roll for Combat, which is the danger of when your passion becomes your job and becomes your business, and then you're just looking at everything as dollars and cents. And I'm very much trying to avoid that. But the truth of the matter is I got bills, and I always had the luxury of being able to be like, well, whatever, I can do whatever I want on my channel because I had a job and it paid the bills and I had medical coverage and everything was good, everything was awesome. And now, on the other hand, though, I'm excited. I have got a new microphone that is coming in. And the reason I have this new microphone coming in is because I have had a store credit with Sweetwater, which is a major and I have had this in my wish list forever. And my store credit didn't cover all of this, but I have like a credit card rewards thing, where you get like 1%, 2% cash back or whatever like that. And I checked my rewards balance the other day and I was like, oh shit, my rewards balance is enough. I wonder if it works for Sweetwater, and it did. And so between my store credit, which was from a technically I did pay for it infinity ago, right? We ordered a bunch of mics and lav mics and I had to return them. And between that and my Capital One rewards points, I was finally able to get this microphone. But this microphone has been on my list for a long time, which I've really wanted to extend for. It's funny that you mentioned that guy. No, I didn't, because I was traveling so much, and the gentleman that was doing that, Dirty Phil, was having some problems with his audio-visual setup. He finally got it apparently complete, and it's been ready for me to look at, but I was traveling, and then obviously I got back, a week and a half ago. I've been back for a week and a half, but I just haven't had a chance. And he actually just messaged me today, and it's kind of like a friendly, like, hey, just to remind you, I did do that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I should look at that. So that is actually funny that you mentioned that. I know it's not the most expensive mic. Just kidding. It is a very expensive microphone. I mean, it's obviously not like, what like Ariana Grande records on, but it's about as pro as you can get. How many mics do I own? Great question. I own 4 Rode pod mics. I own 2 Shure SM7Bs. I own my Electro Voice RE20. I have my original AT 5050s that we used in our very first podcast / streams. I have 4 Audio Technica, what are they, like 60 shotgun microphones. I have a Rode Video Mic Pro. I technically have 2 Rode Wireless Lav Pro 2s. I have a DJI Mic 3. I have a DJI Mic 2. These are all remote Bluetooth lavs. I have a lot. What will you use it for? Great answer, Shorn. Okay. The answer is it is a boom mic. So it is designed to sound really good and not have this big thing in my hand. So you'll like when I do like whiteboard stuff, or if I'm showing stuff, right, on like a top down mount or any of those situations. I mean, the long and the short of it is this is always going to be probably the best audio quality that you can get. It's a fantastic microphone. It's huge, and it's 4 inches from my mouth. However, it does get in the way, and it's annoying. And while I do wear my headset sometimes, I don't like the look of the headset. I think it's, you know, I mean, it's fine for certain instances, but you know, and it sounds okay. You know, it's definitely a different sound, right, than the you know, this is the microphone. This is the RE20, and then this is the BPHS2 broadcast microphone. And obviously, there's a difference. This is going to sound probably tinier and whatever. But my point is, it's still not really the most. I don't know. It's not as freeing and comfortable. It's got a wire, and you know, we use these. We use these for our actual play that we did, and you know, the group didn't like these, so I was like, okay, I bought some of them. I bought a bunch of these. I forgot about these in my microphone list. But anyways, the point is that I had to accept these as being a necessary requirement when I have 5 people or in a small space, and we need to be able to hear each other, and it doesn't need to be loud and terrible. Anyways, but for my personal situation, I wanted to be able to not have a microphone in my face. So the idea of this Sennheiser MKH50 is it will basically be mounted like right here, like just out of frame, and it'll be like right like where my thumb is, and then take it up. So like it's about a foot away from my mouth right here, but you can't see it. And that way I can be free, I can talk, I can move, and I don't need to have this gigantic microphone on this big huge boom arm and all this stuff in my face, and you know, if I'm trying to type on my keyboard or use my mouse or use my whiteboard or all that other stuff. So that's what it's for. And in theory, if I ever want to do documentary filmmaking, it's also really great for that. So there's that. Slumming it up with my C920 and my Blue Yeti. Yeah, that is Blue Yeti's fine. I mean, for 99% of people, the Blue Yeti is fine. Do I own a Magic Mice? I don't know what that is. If that's an Apple thing, I don't use Apple. I think it is an Apple thing, but I don't use Apple. When to get a dynamic mic versus a condenser mic? 99% of the time, you should get a dynamic mic, but it's going to sound better and be more forgiving. But usually a dynamic mic, well, now that things have changed a little bit, but usually a dynamic mic needs a audio interface, and that's an additional purchase that you have to make on top of that, whereas condenser mics can be USB. Yeah, Discord's very bad about changing sources all the time. That's just a Discord problem. Can you catch me up on the Smith news? Is he returning to the channel? No. Are you guys working on a project together? Yes. Hopefully that answers your questions. Will that work well when you are speaking downward for whiteboard stuff? Yeah, so the Sennheiser MKH50 has a cardioid pickup pattern. We should probably be able to go and look at it. So it has a supercardioid polar pattern. Let's see if we have a picture of our supercardioid polar pattern. So this is what a supercardioid polar pattern looks like, and it basically is going to work not only on the immediate axis, it's also going to work in sort of this 3-dimensional sphere around the microphone. So, yeah. I mean, if I was to be like, I mean, no, then it wouldn't really work that way. But, you know, I mean, it'd be the same thing if I just did this, you know. Now, again, from a pure staying on me as I move my head around, the headset's going to be the best. But again, I don't like how the headset sounds as much, and you know, I don't like necessarily wearing something on my head, and it's got the cord, and you know. Fantastic. Gaming at the KOSC Discord is definitely where it's at for sure. Anyways, good stuff, fun stuff. All right, folks. Well, it's 3:15 in the morning. So, and I'm technically streaming later today. I actually do not know what I'm covering. So maybe I'll do another first look. We'll keep the first looks flowing. What would be the first look we would be doing here? We would be doing Die RPG. So maybe we'll do Die RPG. Finally, Thaddeus will finally get their first look done, which would be pretty cool. So, cool beans. Thank you everybody for hanging out with me. Good times, fun times. Enjoy vibing with you all. Thank you folks for throwing out all the especially Testy Trekkie for all the super chats. Love it. Thank you FL4G as well for the super chat. Picked up a couple there. It's pretty cool. Nice. They have a mega game going on right now. Pretty cool. Feels good. They have been there for a while. Well, because the problem is that when people pay gold tickets, it technically jumps you to the top of the line, and we never really created a system for like not skipping the queue. And so technically people kept getting their lines cut who put their stuff on there early, but you know, we never really created a fully, we again, you know what we did, Lollipop? We did design, we did bad design. We just came up with a system, we slapped something on it and said, something's better than nothing, and we launched it. And you know what it has? Problems. Right. It has problems. Right. Now we need Shorn. Right. We need multiple queues, and you pay to get priority access, and then you enter the back of the queue but then the queues themselves are layered. Right. That's what we need. But thank you everybody for hanging out with me. And again, I'll be back later today /tonight and /tomorrow. Right before we leave, 15 Insight. Thank you for finishing up that vibe super chat. Will there be a Dragonbane community game? You got to talk to Bob Bumbarger, the hype man, FOMO himself. Dragonbane is Bob's baby, mostly him and Goblins and Androids. And, I think Bob has been playing a lot of volleyball. So I don't know that he, has made it as much of a priority. I know that he is technically working on it. I don't know if that means he's actually working on that. But the overwhelming feedback from not overwhelming, but the feedback from Dragontide Season 0 was basically, Derek, don't put your peanut butter in our chocolate. We just want to play Dragonbane, man. So I think a lot of Season 1 is going to be more just Bob-esque and, more on the just mirth and mayhem and just an excuse to play Dragonbane. More straight up rather than having all of my procedural elements and systems in it. Now, I learned a lot from that, and that was kind of what I wanted to do, because my goal with Dragontide was, realistically, was I wanted to see, could I make, so I had like a meta reason. See, people created Northern Reaches because people like Pathfinder 2. Bob created Bob and I created Dragontide because Bob loves Dragonbane. But see, I don't actually care about the fucking game. I care about the meta experience of what that mega game is. And for some people, mega game just means this is an excuse to just jam infinite games of PF2, like in Northern Reaches, starting April 20th, or Dragonbane via Dragontide. However, that is not my motivation. My motivation is to provide some sort of unique new gaming experience. And what I wanted to test with Dragontide Season 0, and I knew I didn't want to mess with Northern Reaches, the Northern Reaches was already fairly well established and had, 60, 70, 80, 90 players. Like, I wasn't going to fuck up their shit. But Dragonbane, I was like, okay, this is new, it's experimental. And what I really wanted to see was, could I create a gaming experience that would allow people who really can't play any sort of reasonable schedule and still have them be a participant, a meaningful participant in the mega game. And so I had this very intricate, very complicated, I don't think it was super complicated, but I had this very involved downtime system of downtime actions and resource accumulation, and it felt a little board gamey because I wanted to give people who couldn't go and play in a 3 or 4 hour session every week Maybe they could only play in a 3 or 4 hour session once a month. Maybe they could never play in a 3 and 4 hour session and allow them to not only play, but make meaningful contributions to the mega game. And I think I proved that that worked really, really well. And where you're going to see this the most, that is my like third priority on my KOLC to-do list, is in me trying to run or launch my Conquest of Moria mega game. And the Conquest of Moria is going to be a mega game that is primarily designed to be run as a solo game. In other words, you as a player will participate through the game through the lens of solo play. Now, there will be options to play as a group if you have a GM and you have a group of players who want to play together, but that will be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be rare, but it's not going to be the primary focus, if that makes sense. It'll be an option for people who want to play that way, but the main way that you are going to be interfacing with the game, and the way that the game is going to be played up, is through the solo. And of course, that's going to tie in directly with me playing Moria solo on these live streams and letting people participate that way. So, and I'll basically be playing too. I'll just be playing live on live streams, whereas, you know, you'll be playing with other things. But the idea is still the same, right? You're going to have your solo game. You're going to abide by the rules. You're going to add your fun character emotions, but it's going to be part of an evolving story of this, you know, colony of dwarves and their allies who have returned to Moria, led by Balin, to try to reclaim it from the dark of the, you know, the evil of that. So, yeah. Have you a player max for the mega game boss? I don't know what that means, actually. So that'll be Conquest of Moria, which will be playable as a group, but is going to be designed to be played individually, which means that you could, you know, hop on and play at 11 o'clock at night just because you had some extra time, or you could hop on and play in the middle of the day because work isn't that busy. And hopefully it'll give people a chance to more meaningfully contribute. And at some point, once I learn how to, or find someone who knows how to do Foundry development, I'm going to completely rework the Wilderfeast game and turn it into a mega game. And that will be the mega game of my dreams, because I still think that that'll be the best mega game we've ever run, because it's perfect. Even though I don't like video games and don't really have any interest in playing the Monster Hunter series, nor did I really appreciate Dungeon Meshi, the anime, and those are the two primary inspirations for that game. But those are less, you know, Wilderfeast is lesser priority. Moria is a higher priority because I do want to get that running along with my games. And then of course there's Shadow Dark stuff, which is Shadow Tide and Shadow Deep. And then there's my normal stream stuff, and first looks and all that other stuff, talking about GM advice and all that other crap. So, you know, and then there's cons. And then there's also me, again, you saw a little bit tonight with me showing that footage that I took, which is more of a vlog style. You know, I know like people like Bob World Builder have been doing that. In fact, I know that I think Dottie just did a video where he was like walking in the streets, but those are still scripted videos, right? Like they're still like writing them as a script. I'm more like when I'm out and about and I'm doing stuff, it's more of like a live stream, but I'm just kind of like talking to the camera. And, you know, obviously it's not live, and I'm going to do a little bit of editing. It allows me to put in some B-roll and maybe put in some more, you know, cinematic elements. And that's just because I have extra time now, and I do like, you know, photography and videography. And so it gives me a little bit more chance to sort of do cool stuff with my cameras and my equipment than I get when I'm just, you know, talking to the camera here. Well, the Moria Mega Game doesn't exist yet, John. But when it does open up, it will probably be restricted to, traditionally to join our Mega Games, you have to be a member of the Patreon and be a champion, which is a $10 a month member. Traditionally, I don't, by default, I would assume that is going to remain true. But How that changes, will that change? I don't know, but because it's a little bit different because it's solo. But yeah. Anyways, I would assume at this time it would be restricted to the champion because usually, we have to get extra servers to run stuff, and it requires extra work on my half, and so that's the other thing. But there'll be more information as we get closer to it. So. All right, everybody. Sorry, but 15 Insight grabbed us there with the final super chat of the night to talk about mega games, and you know me, I'll happily talk about mega games. All right, folks, I will be back in 15 hours, give or take. We'll be doing probably another first look. Love talking about RPGs and always love getting new information. And I'm particularly interested to take a look at this one, especially if they're running a mega dungeon campaign right now. So maybe we'll get some nice bleed over from that and get some cool new people in. Always love to see it. All right, everybody. I'll see you later tonight, tomorrow, today, whatever you want to call it. And next time, AKA later, tonight, today on Night's Last Call. Peace.